Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. If this is your first time on my channel, my name is Brendan. I'm a product designer for a SaaS company based in Los Angeles. I have about 2.5 years of product design experience, mainly at the company that I'm working at right now, but I've also done freelance work in the past. And I'm here on YouTube to share my design process and share any design tips that I've learned over the last few years. Right now, my company is currently doubling the size of our product design department, so I'm doing a lot of interviews, and so that's why this is top of mind. But I've also hired on 3 other designers in the past, and I've been a part of hiring committees. So I've interviewed a little over a dozen designers in the past, and that's why I'm going to be sharing with you today 5 tips that you can do to stand out in the product design interviewing process. So let's go ahead and get into tip number 1. All right, so for tip number 1, my advice to you is to custom design your resume. Now, why should you do this? Well, I've actually done this 3 times and I've gotten hired all 3 times. And all I've done is simply taken the same resume, take the branding colors from the website, and then apply it to the resume. Now, what this does is it stands out to the person that's interviewing you. And I've actually heard this every single time that I've done it. They said that because I use their branding colors, they put me at the top of their piles of resumes that they were looking at. And they gave me a chance simply because I was engaged to the extent that I knew them a little bit more than most, or I took the time to try to learn a little bit more about their company. It shows that I took initiative. I'm going to show you how to do it and kind of give you a sense of what I did. So as you can see here on the screen, I am pulling up 2 of my previous employers and my current employer. So this is a company I worked at for a few years back, and they have some pretty cool colors. So this was the first time that I actually applied colors from a company or a brand into my resume. So this is how the resume ended up looking. And it's not that difficult. It really isn't. I'm going to show you how you can do this, but this is the first company that I work for. So they are like an e-commerce partner. Basically, I helped sell e-commerce websites for them, and I really didn't work for them very long, but this was the first time that I used it and it worked. Second one I worked for is this company Captivate. We sold marketing events, basically like IT-based events and finance events to IT executives. And the colors are primarily the ones that you see here in the footer as well as in the logo. So the way that this resume looked, you can see it right here. I will say this too. You don't even have to worry about how it looks because you using their branding colors, this isn't a design exercise. This is just you getting closer to the brand and getting them to associate you and your name to their brand. So don't worry too much if you don't love the way it looks, because personally, I didn't think this looked that great, but it worked. So that's the main point. And then this is my current company. The colors that you're seeing on the right aren't actually the colors of our company. It's just the colors of our conference that we're about to do. So the primary color is this green here. And then these blues you can see kind of here and here. And so those actually these colors weren't here when I applied. You'll notice, I'll show you here, that it's more of like a muted blue, but we've introduced this more like powerful, standout blue that we have here on the screen. And so what I would do, just to kind of show you how to actually do this, I have a Chrome extension. It's called Go Full Page. You click it, it takes a full screenshot, and then you can download the image. So I've done that here. So what I would simply do is just create a couple of shapes here. I happen to use squares, and then just select the square, choose the fill, and then choose the picker here, and then take the first color that you would like. In this case, I'm going to do this blue. The second one I want is this sort of like lighter blue, and then the third one I want is the green. And I can actually take it from here. I think I'm just going to take it right. You can see that I'm being precise over in the picker over there. So these are the 3 branding colors. And then it's just as simple as applying those 3 colors to your resume. All right, so tip number 2, find out who's going to be interviewing you and then do a little bit of research on them. I do this all the time. Doesn't matter if it's an interview or if it's just somebody I'm going to be talking to going forward. Oftentimes, especially as an interviewer that's interviewing somebody for a job, you're going to do the same sort of research. You're going to look into their resume, but you're going to look at their LinkedIn. You should be doing the same thing and use it as a way to connect with people. Find that it's the easiest way to break the ice. I'm actually going to show you my personal LinkedIn and give you a sense of what I would look for if I was trying to connect with myself or just try to break the ice. So first thing you'll notice, usually it's the school that you work at, they attended. You're gonna kind of see that, and maybe you have a story behind it. For me, it's a boot camp, and then also location where they live. I currently live in Portland. Used to live in LA my whole life, but just moved here. Maybe you have a connection to Portland, then you can talk about that. The other thing you can do is look at, I already opened this link. You can look at like things that they've commented on or interacted with. Maybe they liked it or they commented. So, and this was a post that I interacted with. Does anyone still use InVision? I just simply commented, we stopped using InVision in our company 1.5 years ago. Hard to believe that the UX UI bootcamp I went to still teaches this. So this could be like a really good like talking point to break the ice. You can do it in a really creative way without it coming off as like stalker. But yeah, that's something that I would do, recommend trying to do. And then you can look at other companies that they've worked at. So I've worked for somewhat popular companies in my early days like CarMax, 24 Hour Fitness, the YMCA, and then my first job was at Nike, like retail jobs, of course. So yeah, just look through their LinkedIn and try to find something to connect with them. Like I said, it's the easiest way to break the ice. You'll get the interviewer to start to feel comfortable with you. And as you sort of talk through things, you'll just notice, you should notice that you click a little bit better. All right, so tip number 3, bring energy and be humble. What I mean by bringing energy doesn't mean that you have to be bouncing off the walls and be a different person than who you are today. I am not the most energetic person on the camera, and I know that about myself. But at the same time, I feel like I'm relatable to you guys. I don't have to try too hard to be someone that I'm not. And so I want you to kind of take that in mind as you're doing an interview. It's very similar to what I'm doing right now. It's kind of weird talking on a camera, but you're going to be talking to somebody on the other end. And so just get comfortable with, talking out your process, talking through, things that you're passionate about, and it should come off naturally. That's something that I feel is true for myself. When I'm talking about something that I love, it becomes very obvious. And when you're in an interview and you're the kind of person that's invested in getting that job, it comes off very obviously to the other person on the other side. And in the other side of the coin, I've interviewed people that really aren't that passionate about working for us. They just want a job. It comes off as desperate, and it comes off as somebody that really wouldn't fit long-term at the company. So those are things that I've noticed. I also think that it's really important that being passionate, you can tell when a designer is passionate simply because they're always hungry to get better, and it comes off as being coachable. It comes off as somebody who doesn't have it all figured out. I think there's a difference between being confident about yourself and then being arrogant, and you don't want to come off as arrogant. You also don't want to come off as somebody that doesn't know enough, right? Like there's a balance between being humble and then not knowing what you're doing. So there, just kind of work through those things. I think the only way to do that is just through practice, quite honestly. I hope that I come off as somebody, even though I have just 2.5 years of experience, I don't want to come off as somebody that's new to this, because I've accomplished a lot in what I do. I've tripled my income at the company that I work at, and I've proven myself. I'm not here by accident, and I don't want anyone to kind of think that about myself. I surely don't. And the only reason that I've gotten to this point is because I believed in myself. And we all face that voice in your head that makes you doubt yourself. But the reality is, when I first got hired as a product designer, I had no experience really. A couple of months of doing some concept projects and some freelance projects, but you don't know what you don't know until you're actually in the job. So come out, be confident, know that everybody faces imposter syndrome, and that you're going to be able to figure it out as long as you are devoted to it. So I'll get off of this little rant and we'll get into the video again. So yeah, just to sort of summarize, I would say being confident and showing that energy, being humble, and showing that passion is really what's going to get people interested and invested in you. And basically be your champion as somebody like myself who basically has to decide who I want to get hired onto the team. I'm going to go for the person that shows me that they're going to work well with me and they're going to push me to become a better designer myself, but they're also going to do their job and they're not going to slow me down and make me have to basically stop everything that I'm doing to help them. I think you want somebody that is a go-getter and knows how to work independently, but also is willing to give advice and take advice. So that's tip number 3. All right, so tip number 4, keep your answers concise and be memorable. I cannot stress to you enough how important this is. I think, being in an interview, sometimes it's a very nerve-wracking experience. There's usually 2 different types of people. There's somebody who doesn't maybe say enough, and then there's somebody who just rambles and goes on and just never finishes what they have to say, like I'm doing right now. I'm doing it intentionally, because the problem when you ramble, it's really difficult for somebody. Notice how much I'm talking, right? Like I'm just keeping talking. What am I trying to say? I'm doing that so that you see how frustrating this is, right? So being concise with your answers helps you as the interviewer to take notes. And then when I compare my notes from one person to the next, I'm going to remember certain things. Of course, I'm not actively taking notes as I'm interviewing you. And at our company, we don't actually record the interviews, so I can't go back and listen. So it's really important that you say your answers to these questions in a concise way that's memorable, so that I can quickly jot down a note and then remember back to what you said, or just off of memory, remember what you said. All right, and tip number 5, make sure to ask good questions at the end of your product interview. Now, I'm going to actually do an entire video talking about what questions that you should be asking, but just to give you a couple ideas, let's just name off a few. At a high level, you want to learn a little bit more about the company. So you want to ask questions like, what are the different product offerings that they have? Maybe you'll learn a little bit about product releases that are upcoming, get a sense of the roadmap that they're working on. Just ask questions, be engaged. That way you not only know about the product, but you can see yourself working for a company a little bit better when you can fully grasp what they're doing. So don't be afraid to ask things like value propositions, what features they offer, and just be inquisitive about like who are their competitors and all these different types of things. You can also ask things like, what is your product life cycle? So how long does it take to get a product out to market? Do you do betas and those kind of things? What's your design process? Do you work in 2-week sprints? Do you work in waterfall or agile? Like what are the different philosophies behind the design process? Do you work alongside a designer on any projects? Is it pretty much always you working on your own thing? Things like that. It might help you. Ultimately, it really will help you to compare. If you're doing multiple interviews, it will help you to compare what job's a better fit for you, just based on what you hear in each interview. So yeah, make sure to ask good questions, because at the end of the day, it's going to help you to evaluate your opportunities. So those are the 5 tips. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Every Monday, I'm going to be releasing videos just like this, whether it's a design tip or a design resource that I think you should know about and just have a better understanding about. And if that's the kind of content that you'd be interested in, make sure to subscribe, because I'm going to be doing that every single week. I also have design series content that I do on Thursdays. So design series right now, we're working on 2 different design series. I'm building out my design portfolio just because I actually never had to create my design portfolio, simply because I transitioned from sales to product design. So I didn't have a traditional interview necessarily, but I want to build that up now. And so I'm walking through my process behind me creating my portfolio. I'm also working on design concepts, like portfolio projects, basically. And so I'm walking through user research, discovering usability issues, prototyping, user testing, building a case study. If this is the kind of content that would be interesting to you, make sure to also subscribe. I'm also going to be doing all sorts of really cool design content resource like series. So I've actually planned out my content all the way out to 2023, which is crazy to me, but I'm a big planner and I'm very excited. I think you guys are going to love a lot of the different series that are coming. So make sure to subscribe for that. And I always end my videos with the same phrase. It takes 10,000 hours to master a skill. So what are you guys designing today? Make sure to let me know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe so that other people can find value from this video and from all the content that I'm going to put out next going forward. Join the Slack channel in the description to connect with like-minded designers, and I'll see you guys in the next video.